Hi. Um, this is going to be a topic related specifically to religion, although it's not about religion per se. So if you're thin-skinned, you might want to toughen up. If I ask you, which is worse to find in your congregation? A person from the LGBTQ community or a sexual predator? Now, before you say they're the same thing, I'm going to tell you right now they are absolutely not the same thing. Sexual preferences and gender identity are not related to the tendency toward sexual abuse and sexual violence. They are two separate things. So do not try to comment down below that they are the same thing and there's a higher incidence of sexual abuse by people of the LGBTQ community because that's simply not true. The facts don't support it. If you write it, I will block you, I will report you. Now, with that out of the way, let me elaborate. So, LGBTQ plus, which I'm not even going to get into the plus part because there's too many of it and it's already confusing enough as it is for somebody who grew up at a point in time when I only knew about um, homosexual people, which would be gays and lesbians, or nowadays gay means the same as homosexual used to, and homosexual now means gays, and or it depends on who you talk to. Bisexual, um, transsexual, which meant somebody who changed gender, transvestite, which meant somebody who dressed like the opposite gender, and what is now termed intersex or middle sex, but used to be called and is not liked by people in that community, hermaphrodites. Um, I'd never heard of queer. I now understand queer, as well as I can, anyways. I never had heard of non-binary when I was young. I never heard of intersex or middle sex until maybe in my late 40s when I was living in Indonesia. So L is lesbian, women who like women only. G is gay, men who like men only. B is bisexual, people who like both men and women. And I'm speaking sexually here. T is somebody who could be transsexual or transgender, with or without hormone replacement therapy, with or without um, testosterone or estrogen, more specifically, and with or without sexual reassignment or gender reassignment, I guess would be more appropriate. Um, and then there's Q, which is queer. People who sometimes feel like they're one gender and sometimes feel like they're another gender, although there are other definitions of it. There doesn't really seem to be very consistent vocabulary between older generations and younger generations, and even within the younger generations, there doesn't seem to be a consistent understanding of the vocabulary between everybody that I've spoken to. There are also things like pansexual, which is somebody who will have sex with anybody, no matter what their gender or sexual preference might be, as long as it aligns with their sexual preference, or their gender, I mean. So that's LGBTQ plus in a nutshell. And I apologize if you think I've made any mistakes. Please feel free to clarify politely in the comments. Um, but again, a lot of people have a lot of different understandings, and for my generation, the way things were defined is much different. In fact, I personally do not agree with using gender in the way that it's currently being used. Gender to me is the technical term for whether you are male, intersex, with all those different categories, or female. Using the word sex for that to me is inappropriate because sex for that purpose was a slang term, really, as I was growing up. Now, we talk about sexual predators, we talk about pedophiles, rapists, um, and so on. people who will molest somebody, people who will groom people in order to have sex with them, and even maybe trade them with other people or sell them into sexual slavery, which includes pimps, which is what pimps do. A lot of pimps are psychopaths. They care absolutely nothing about anybody that they do this to, including their sisters, their mother, their grandmother. They're very um, dangerous people. I guess I'll say that. So if we look at certain sects within the Christian religion and certain other religions, there is no tolerance for people of the LGBTQ plus community. They are considered to be um, heretical or apostate or sinning. And there have been incidences many, many times where Christians and people of those certain other faiths have actually murdered those people or driven them out of their community or pushed them to the point emotionally where they committed suicide, all of which are sins. It is not your job to judge a person's sexual orientation or gender. That's God's job. You shouldn't be murdering people or tormenting people over that. And there have been efforts to convince people that it's not natural and that they're wrong, and to brainwash them or indoctrinate them, if you prefer that word, into no longer believing that they are of that persuasion. And not only has the decades of that kind of reprogramming not proven to be effective, it has actually resulted in people committing suicide because they cannot reconcile what they know to be true with what the people in their religion are telling them in this reprogramming and within the larger community. So we have people who claim to be good, upstanding members of their religion who are, through intolerance, through abuse, and so on, are causing people to either leave their religion that they love or commit suicide because they feel so horrible about themselves for something that they didn't choose. And there's been a lot about this. And I know that people who are listening to this now who are in those religions probably don't care. And if you don't, then you are sinning against God. You are sinning against Jesus, because Jesus did not teach this kind of behavior. Now, yes, in the Old Testament, God was very strict about this sort of thing, especially in regards to men laying with men. It was very clear that this sort of behavior was not acceptable. It was less clear about lesbians. But moving on, when somebody within your religion comes out as being of the LGBTQ plus community, or they ask questions about the religion, and you respond with hate, vitriol, condemnation, guilt tripping, and so on, you are sinning. You are pushing them out of the religion, away from God, and on top of that, you are potentially setting the stage for either them to commit suicide or for somebody within your community or within your religion to murder them, which will be weighed on your soul. Either way, in addition to the other crimes you've committed against these people and sins. Now, I know that some people join the LGBTQ plus community, or or are part of, whether they align themselves with them or not, are of that persuasion, I guess you could say. Some of them they become aware of it, and there's no specific reason why. Now, biologically speaking, having studied a course from Stanford on human behavioral biology. I know there are some psychological, or not psychological reasons. Well, yeah, psychological reasons and biological reasons within the brain that may be influencing this persuasion, this predilection or preference, this belief. There are also psychological reasons such as body dysmorphia and so on. And unfortunately, gender reassignment doesn't help with body dysmorphia or gender dysmorphia in many cases, as far as I understand it. And I could be wrong on that. Depends on which statistics you look at. So other people, and I'm speaking from my own experience here, become that way for other reasons, environmental reasons, nurture, not nature. So there is a genetic side to it, and there is an environmental side to it, which is environmental means your family, your community, your culture, and your religion, and other things as well. If, for example, as a child, a pedophile abuses you, or a pedophile of the same gender as you, or another child introduces you to that kind of sex, then you will have a different view of sex. Your understanding will be that it's okay to have sexual relations with somebody of the same gender. And you probably already believe that it's okay to have sexual relations with the person of the opposite gender. And for those of you who are not aware, this kind of sexual relationship things happens to many, many children, both the pedophilic stuff and child on child. It's very common. It happened to me. My wife was attacked by a sexual predator, a pedophile, who was employed by her father. And it happened to my kids. It's happened to many other people that I've talked to about that were willing to open up about it. It's extremely common, not to mention rape, especially for women. And then, of course, it's very famous that within the Catholic Church, there are a lot of pedophiles and sexual predators. But it's not just the Catholic Church. That's just where the focus has been. I'm not sure why it's been so focused on the Catholic Church, because I am aware from having talked to people of other Christian sects that, denominations. People don't like the word sects because it has a connotation or association with the word cult. But religions are kind of like, in my opinion, there's not much difference between a religion and a cult. I mean, there are some, but that aside. So I know from having talked to people, as I said, that this problem of sexual predation and by pedophiles and rapists and such is not limited to the Catholic Church. It is not even limited to the Christian religion. And in some sects or denominations, and in some cults, in some religions, these people are not just tolerated, but they are protected, and the blame is put on the children, the victims. They are told, if you hadn't acted that way, that person wouldn't have done that to you. It's your fault. If you hadn't smiled at that person the way you did, they would not have thought that you wanted to have sexual relations with them. It's your fault. If you had not dressed in such a provocative way, they would not have raped you. It's your fault. This is utter nonsense. You are enabling criminals. You are enabling mentally ill people and sadists and rapists and pedophiles to spread this very thing that you hate in your religion, in your church, in your temple, in your sect, in your cult. You are encouraging this behavior. So while a person of the LGBTQ plus persuasion may never do something with another member of your church or temple or whatever, or your religion, a sexual predator, pedophile and otherwise, will do this to multiple people in your community, in your church, under the guise of being good members of your congregation. So you tell me, why is it okay to shame all of these people, to cause suicides for both categories, LGBTQ plus and victims of sexual abuse and rape and so on? And why is it okay to brainwash them and cause them to have a major psychological rift develop? And why is it okay to murder them and yet protect the predators? I would like to know this. Because when you blame a child for the illegal behavior of the adult, you are the predator by proxy. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Have a great day.
Hi, thank you for watching my video, and I hate doing this, but things have gotten pretty sketchy with my employer, and without going into all the details, which I have covered at other times, at least in part, I need some financial assistance. If you have the opportunity to do so, that's great. If you don't, even if you can just put in a word of support in the comments, that helps. To have even just that is good. But financially, I need to be able to carry on doing what I'm doing with these channels. Not so much this channel, not so much the Eclectician channel, which is mostly just me learning about stuff and sharing it with you, but with my Glenn's Fast Reviews channel, where most of what you see that I review, I've purchased myself, or I've gotten at a food pantry, or somebody gave to me because they know I do reviews. But I have invested huge amounts of money in it. And at this point, with a little over 1,800 viewers, I'm earning maybe $125 a month, which doesn't cover the cost of what I've done, let alone the ongoing cost. And then even worse than that is my third channel that's at the PC Expert Amateur, which I've invested a large sum of money that I should have been saving for my retirement, because I wanted to be able to present a lot of information about fans and air coolers and water coolers for computers and other things as well. And in order to do that, I had two choices. I either had to make deals with manufacturers and sell my soul, or stick to my ethics and pay for things myself in order to not be beholden to somebody and not feel like, oh, I owe them. So yeah, it's pretty costly, and with the situation with my employer, Amazon, in which the workers' compensation company Sedgwick refuses to fix my shoulder, which was injured at work over a period of months last year because Amazon's management refused to abide by their own policies to provide me support. I may end up having to pay for the surgery myself with the help of my insurance, and that will still be very expensive. And then I would be out of work for at least a month. So switching to another job, it would be hard, because if I come to you and I say, hey, I want to work for you, and you're like really interested in me, and then I say, oh, by the way, in the near future, I'm going to be having a shoulder replacement, so I will probably be out of work for a month. You're probably going to say, I'll pass, thanks, though. Which would actually be illegal, and you won't tell me that's why you're not choosing me. But, it is a problem, especially with me being as old as I am. I'm almost 58. So if you could please, if you can either go to the my YouTube channel, Glenn's Fast Reviews, and you can make any kind of a donation on there, any size, any time you want, through that, because that's my monetized channel. Or you can go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Glenn M-I-I. That's GLENNMII. And you can make a recurring donation. The smallest one I have on there right now is $10. If that's too big for you to give on a monthly basis, let me know. I can always add a smaller one than that. You know, I just need to know. But again, if you are financially strapped, please don't send me money. I don't want somebody else getting into trouble financially just to help me. That would weigh very heavily on my conscience. So thanks again for watching this video, and let's make the world a better place.